Alright, this is a video for balancing equations. This is some examples and my uh, pretty much giving you a possible way to do it, but it's not the only way to do it. Um, the method of which I speak to balance equations is called MINOH. Okay, M-I-N-O-H. Okay, and MINOH stands for metals, ions, nonmetals, oxygen, and hydrogen. It offers an order for you to balance your atoms. You don't necessarily need to do this. This is just a method that works. And of course, there's some tweaking that I'll do to it to make it work a little better for us. Okay, because I do follow MINOH for the most part. It's just sometimes I will flip these guys depending on the needs of the problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at this equation. It is unbalanced. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is balance my nonmetal, which would be my neon. Now, obviously, neon and hydrogen, or sorry, not neon, nitrogen and hydrogen are both nonmetals, but in MINOH, H is its own category. So anything that is not a metal, oxygen, hydrogen, or ion is a nonmetal. Nitrogen would fall in that category. So right here, I need to kind of do an inventory first. I have two nitrogens here, and I have one nitrogen here. And then I have three hydrogens here and two hydrogens here. Now what I need to be able to do is have equal amounts. So if I have 2, if I put a coefficient 2 in front of the ammonia in H3, then that's going to change this to a 2. Now my nitrogen atoms are balanced. Okay, obviously my hydrogens are not, because not only do I have 2 on the reactant side, but that 2 that I put for the coefficient in front of ammonia also causes this 3 to become a 6. Now that makes things a little easier for our balancing, because how do I turn 2 H's on the reactant side into 6? Well, I would simply put the coefficient 3 in front of the hydrogen, and that would cause this to become a 6. And now everyone is balanced. Okay? So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. I have hydrochloric acid and calcium carbonate going to form calcium chloride, water, and carbon dioxide. Okay, so now things are kind of spread out a little more over here because I have 5 different species, but we're still going to follow the same premise. Okay, so I have 1 hydrogen on the reactant side, so 1 hydrogen here, and I have 2 hydrogens here. So do your inventory first. I have, let's see, one chlorine over here, and I have 2 chlorines over here. And then my calcium, I'm going to have 1 calcium on this side, 1 calcium on this side, and my carbons, I'm going to have, let's see here, 1 carbon on this side and 1 carbon on that side. So my carbons are already balanced. That's nice. And then I have 3 oxygens here, and I have 1 oxygen there and 2 oxygens there for a grand total of 3. Okay. So another way to do this, instead of having these little numbers underneath, is to do an inventory like this. I have hydrogen. I have, let's fix that real quick. Okay, I have hydrogen. I have carbon, I have chlorine, I have calcium, and I have oxygen. And then, of course, this is my reactant side, this is my product side. Okay, it's just kind of an easier way. I like to do it this way, other than having these little guys right here. Okay, so hydrogen on the reactant side, I have 1. Let's see, carbon, I have 1. Chlorine, I have 1. Calcium, I have 1. Oxygen, I have 3. On the product side, hydrogens, I have 2. Let's see here. Carbons, I have 1. Chlorines, I have 2. Calcium, I have 1. Oxygen, I have 3. That way we can kind of get rid of this mess. Okay? So, now what I need to do is change my coefficients in my equation to balance it out. So if I went minnow, the very first thing that I'm going to balance is my metals, which would be calcium. Guess what? Calcium's already balanced. Don't need to worry about it. Moving on to the next one would be my non-metal. Okay. Now, you have two nonmetals here. You have chlorine and you have carbon. It does not matter which one you do first. Okay, since carbon is already balanced, I'd probably do the chlorine. So I am short a chlorine on my reactant side, so I'm going to make that a 2. And I'm going to put a 2 right there, kind of small, just to have it on the side. Actually, no, I'll just do it the normal way, so don't confuse anybody. So there's 2 there. Now, in doing that, yeah, I have increased that to 2, and I've also increased my hydrogens to 2 because now I have 2 hydrochloric acids. Okay? Now, if I look at my equation and my my inventory, now everything is balanced. So I'm done. Okay? So that was my only coefficient I needed to add it in. So don't think that just because it's a big old equation that it's going to take a lot of work. And look, I changed one coefficient and it was balanced. Okay, so on to the next one. I have sodium bromide, calcium fluoride. It's going to form sodium fluoride and calcium bromide. Okay, so again, our inventory, we're going to go sodium, bromine, calcium, and fluorine. So sodium's on the reactant side, I have 1. Sodium's on the product side, I have 1. Bromine's on the reactant side, I have 1. Bromine on the reactant side, I have 2. Calcium, I have 1 on the reactant, I have 1 on the product. Fluorine, I have 2 on the reactant, I have 1 on the product. Okay, so my metals are already balanced, but my non-metals are not. So it does not matter which one you do first. Let's go ahead and do the bromine. Okay, so I'm going to put a 2 in front of the bromine, which would make, or the sodium bromide, which would cause this to be 2, but of course this would also cause this to be 2 as well. Okay, now after every single time that I've done something, I need to go back to the beginning of minnow. So now I don't have a metal balanced. So I'm going to go back and I'll balance my metal, which would be sodium, and I'm going to make sodium a 2, or sodium fluoride right there, a 2, to turn that 1 sodium into 2. But remember, I also am going to turn that fluorine into 2. All right? And if we look at our inventory, all of our numbers are matching up. This equation is now balanced. Okay? Next one, elemental phosphorus, oxygen, okay, making P2O5. So very first thing we're going to do is do our inventory. P-O. My phosphorus side, 1 on my reactant, 2 on my product, 2 oxygen on my reactant side, and 5 on my product side. Okay, so my non-metal I do first. I need to make this a 2. Okay, now here's the little issue when I have with minnow. Okay, minnow would say to do a non-metal first, so I would do this and cause that to be a 2, right? Well, there's like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat here, but it would be my advice to make the phosphorus, if something is an element, you can do it last, because then it's not going to manipulate any other element as long as it's the only one where that particular element's found. Okay, so I'm going to just continue following minnow because it'll still work, but you can play with this. You don't have to necessarily do the same way. All right, now on my oxygen side, I have 2 oxygens and I have 5 on the product side. Well, I'm trying to think, how can I get an equal amount on both sides? Okay, well, there's one way to think about it. You can go, okay, what times 2, okay, what times 2 would equal 5? Okay, so this is one way to do this. If I went to 2.5, right, that means if this is 2.5 times 2, that means I now have 5 oxygen on both sides, because 2.5 times 2 is going to equal 5. Okay, this times this equals 5. Now, of course, I can't have 2.5 molecules of oxygen. So one thing that you can do is once you have determined, oh, okay, I'm balanced, but it's not necessarily correct because I have a decimal in there, I can just multiply everything by 2. Okay? And when I multiply everything by 2, that means this becomes, that 1 becomes a 2, right? This 2.5 becomes a 5, and this 2 becomes a 4. Okay? Now we count everything out. That means we have 4 over here, and we have 10 here. And then we have 4 over here, and we have 5 times 2, 10 there. Okay? So there is a handful of equations to balance. So go ahead and bring these notes with you so when we do the worksheets and the problems in class, you have a reference.